Hi guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. My name is Ria. If you're seeing my face for the very first time, highly welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. What's up G, how are you doing? So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about 8 things to look out for if you're interested in buying a used car or a car generally here in Ireland. If this is something that you're probably going to be interested in, then please do keep on watching. The very first thing I think you should actually look out for, or you should actually note before you buy a used car, especially in Ireland, is that you should go with a mechanic or somebody that just knows how a car works, what to look out for in a car, how the car functions, the battery, everything, the tires. Is it the right tires? Is it not the right tires? Someone that's able to take the car on a road test, okay, before you actually buy that car. You cannot just see a car on the website or online and you'll be like, oh, the car is really pretty, the car is fine, and you just go there and you pay and you pick the keys without having to check if everything about the car is actually right. You would be making a very huge mistake if you do that, okay? Another reason you should go with a mechanic or someone that knows the car is because you probably want to take the car on a road test, which is very, very important. Or secondly, you kind of want to hoist the car to like check the undercarriage of the car, the ball joint of the car, and you also want to probably run like a diagnosis on the car to be sure that everything is actually okay. So for example, I use my own story as an example, okay? So I went with someone actually before I was able to buy my car, and everything was actually great. Like, we checked other cars before we finally picked the particular one that I went for, okay? But like, let's say 1 year later, like a few months, like a lot of months after, when I took the car for servicing, because it was kind of due for servicing as at that particular month, even if I just bought it like not quite long, okay, I found out that the tires of the car are not the correct tires for the car. Can imagine my surprise when I'm now being told by very good professionals that I have to pay 90 euros per one tire. Tires in front are the right tires for the car, but the tires at the back are not. They were not, and are still not, because I haven't changed it yet, are not the right tires for the car. And this is still after I went with someone who is really good. Like, this is like an oversight. I'm not sure it is his fault at all whatsoever. If you're looking for my plug, if you want my plug, if you're looking to buy like a used car or like a car generally in Ireland, and you want someone to help you, like a very good person to help you, I'll leave his name and his phone number and probably like his email address as well in my description box, so you should definitely please check that out if you're interested. He charges, but he's very, very good at what he does, okay? So my own story is probably like a very good example of why I would never advise somebody, especially someone that doesn't know anything about cars. You cannot go to buy a car without any help from somebody else, okay? The second thing I would also advise when buying a used car would be the mileage. I know that people are of the opinion that the mileage doesn't matter, and I'm kind of coming to terms with that. I'm trying to see reasons as to why that claim is quite valid, because to be fair, the mileage that I got my car and the mileage that it is now, it's quite a distance, and the car is still functioning properly, okay? My own advice would be, especially for learner drivers or new drivers, would obviously be to buy a car whose mileage is between, let's say, at least 60,000 to like maybe 120. I mean, people say that their cars with a mileage of 200,000 that is still working as great as. While that is good, my own advice, especially for a new driver, someone that doesn't know anything about cars and is not really trying to have a lot of issues with that particular car, my own advice would be to kind of stick with mileage between 60,000 to 820,000 K, okay? Which also brings me to my next point. The third thing to look out for me would be to make sure when you're buying a used car, it's just to kind of like not get a car that has been used by more than 5 people. 5 is even a stretch, because when I was looking for mine, I think my own cap was like 3, to be honest. But that's not to say that if a car has been driven by 5 people or 6 people, the car won't still be great. But for me, what I did, the things that I did, I tried not to look for a car that has been used by more than 3 people, okay? But you can look for a car that has been used by more than 5 people. It could still be good. Just find a car in a good condition. Okay, another thing to look out for, another thing to note is that this was one of my first points, but I'll just explain it better here, is to make sure that a road test is being conducted. Okay, so I'm always going to be using my own stories because that's the only way I can explain it better. When I was looking for cars, one of the first cars that I went to actually look out for, the car was really good. I loved it. It was like in the color I wanted. It was red, it was sweet, it was so nice, and it was cheap as well. So I would have easily just paid for it and walked away without, you know, bothering, because I'm like, yeah, this is like my dream first car. I want something like this, you know. And when we took it out on a road test, everything screamed no. I wasn't going to pick that car, because even if I had no clue as to what goes on in cars, okay, just for me to take that car on a road test and just hearing the sounds coming out of that car, for me it was like, no, we're not doing this. Okay, we're not doing this. I'm not going to be the one to be fixing a lot of things that you didn't fix and now you want to sell the car. Okay, you have to check if there's a problem with the engine, if there's a problem with the gearbox, if there's a problem with the suspension of the car. These things are very, very important. Another thing to look out for when buying a used car here for me in Ireland would be the model of the car. I know that some people will be of the opinion that the model doesn't matter, you can buy any model you want, especially if it's your first car. It really doesn't matter, but for me it did matter to me, because there's a particular brand, or like few brands here in Ireland, that is being like, it's easy to steal. Okay, brands like Mazda, brands like Range Rovers. Okay, those two brands, I've had people who have owned those cars and those cars have been stolen. And trust me, you do not want your car to be stolen. You do not want it to be stolen. Trust me, your heart will break. Okay, so I try to avoid brands like that. Number one reason is because they probably don't have like a car security in them. Okay, you can even buy cars that are good. Cars that I recommend for me would be cars like Toyota, cars like, you know, Hyundai, cars like Volkswagen. Yes, I recommend that as well. There are just very few cars that I would recommend, to be fair. I don't like I know so much about cars, so don't even listen to me at all. But yeah, just be very careful when you're buying any car, especially like a used car. Be sure that they do have, you know, car security in them, which brings me to my next point. Be sure that the car you're going to get has like security measures in them, and if they don't, that you plan on actually installing them. Things like immobilizers or car alarms, they are very, very important in any part of the world for your car. It's really, really important. So immobilizers is so helpful because your car cannot easily be stolen. So even if they're able to like maybe use like a different key, like you can even barely use a different key. When a car has an immobilizer installed in it, you can't use like a random key or like another method to open that car. But let's say you are successful, maybe you broke the glass and you're able to open the car, you cannot start the car with a different key. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my own understanding of what immobilizer is, and based off of my own research, that's what I think it is. You have to start the car with the key that is made for the car, because it's the code that kind of transmits to particulars to the system. So if that is not the key, it won't start. They'll just end up destroying your car and probably just leaving it there because they can't steal it. So things like immobilizers and alarms are very, very important security measures that you need in your car. Okay, so even if your car doesn't have it, please, when you buy the car, make sure to install it. Another thing to look out for, especially as a first-time learner driver, would be to make sure that whatever car you're getting has cheap insurance, because you don't want to be buying a car of 3k and you're kind of paying an insurance of like 3k or maybe 4k. You don't want to do that. Try to get a car whose insurance is actually lesser than what you got the car for, to be honest, because insurance can be quite brutal in this country. Like, you can be paying a lot for car insurance, and that's one thing that really discourages people from getting cars, because they're like, why would I pay this amount on a car and then still have to pay double or equivalent to the same price that I could use to buy a new car on an insurance that's only going to be for 1 year. It sometimes doesn't make sense when you think about it. But my own advice would be, try to buy a car that has very, very cheap insurance, something that you can be able to pay and maintain without having to break the bank. Okay, so I'm just going to be giving us a few websites as to where you can actually buy your first car as a learner driver or a used car generally. The first one would be DELE. it's a website and it's also like an app. I think using the app is just better. User experience is way better. You're able to see the cars by different vendors, either like from a private seller or like, you know, from a company, a dealership as well. The second one would be carzone.ie. I don't know if carzone.ie is an app or if it has an app, but I know it's a website as well. The third one would be Facebook Marketplace. Why I want to recommend Facebook Marketplace, I also want to say that you have to be a little bit careful when you're purchasing cars from Facebook Marketplace. Be very sure that you're not being scammed. Like, do not pay any money online until you see the car and you get the keys and then you pay the money. And the fourth one would be car dealerships. You walk into a car dealership and you get a car. And then the last one would be private sellers. Why I would always say to be careful as well with private sellers, except you know this person, so maybe except the person's a friend of a friend, or like a friend, or like a neighbor, or like a colleague. I would say to be very careful of getting a car from like private seller, especially because it's probably going to be a used car, except there is no warranty whatsoever. Then you don't really care about the person. Once you make your transactions and you get the key, end of conversation. Okay, but yeah, private sellers could also be a good way to get your car. I hope this content is kind of like very different from the normal content that I will put out. Okay, but I want to talk more about Ireland, not just about jobs. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. If you have any questions regarding buying a car, you know, whatsoever, just leave it down in the comment section. I'll respond to you. And yeah, please don't forget to give it a huge thumbs up, and also please don't forget to subscribe and also turn on your notification bell down there beside the subscribe button. My name is Ria and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye guys. Mwah.